We are back on Morning Line. Our guest, Barbara McGinnis with McGinnis Elder Law, taking your phone calls. If you want to join us, 737-7587 is the number. And actually, I think Ricky just called back. He had a follow-up question. He was our first caller of the morning, Barbara. So let's go back to him. Ricky, did you have a follow-up question? You go ahead, Ricky. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Ricky hung up. If he calls back, let's go to Linda now. Linda, are you there, Linda?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, ma'am. What's your question?
I have a question about the stimulus check that was sent out.
Yeah.
My mother passed away on April the 28th.
Okay.
The very next day, they deposited that $1,200 relief check. Does that need to be paid back?
Now, I know the answer to that. Barbara, do you know the answer to that?
I do.
Go for it.
According to the IRS, if the person was deceased on the date of receipt, the money needs to be returned.
All right.
And that's on the IRS website.
That's kind of an updated thing, because I was going to say, and I believe Barbara's correct if that's on there right now, if they're deceased by the time it arrives. Prior to that amendment, I imagine, we were told if they passed, during the past couple of months, and it came in their name, you can keep it. But that, let's say they had passed last February or last December, and they got a check now because somehow they didn't know they had died, then you would have to send it back. But if now you're seeing there, because that's something that's developed new over the last couple of weeks as far as I've seen, if they've been deceased when they receive the check, then you send it back, which I think makes sense. But go ahead. What were you going to say on that?
Well, I was going to say, originally, I don't think there was really clear instructions.
That's right.
A lot of these rules were just, very quickly implemented, and I don't think there was a lot of instruction. So originally, the assumption I believe we were all operating under was if they were alive when the Stimulus Relief Act was passed, then if they subsequently received a check but had passed away during that interim, they could keep it.
Right.
Since then, I have seen, seriously, and we have it on our blog at McGinnis about the instructions about how to return it. If you don't return it, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The IRS is going to come along and try to take it back, because sometimes when people still continue to receive Social Security income after death, Social Security will recoup that money, and they can do it through bank transfers if it was an auto draft. So unfortunately, I believe the answer is it needs to be returned to the IRS.
And that does make sense. In the case, the money was meant for that individual who's passed away. And that's excellent information. I think you did a great job explaining that, Barbara. So, Linda, my take would be, go to McGinnis, look at their website, go to irs.gov. You can get the latest on this. What you wouldn't want to do is keep that if at some point, and Barbara's right, there's so much right now that's unknown. And I can tell you this, Linda, you aren't alone. I've heard from dozens of people who said a loved one had passed away and they received a check for them. What should they do? And in general, I would say, look into returning it. If you keep it, I'm not saying that's necessarily illegal. I'm not clear what that is of a violation, but they could come after you down the road to get that back. But will they? And what are the records? And how did it work out? I assume you just want to do what's right. So I would check it out, as Barbara said, on the website and make a play. Because it makes sense. That money was meant for them. If they've passed away and you got your own check, it's not like you get to keep double, right? I think that's the way it is, even though I could imagine it's quite tempting. All right, let's see. We've got the phone lines open, 737-7587. If you have a question or comment for Barbara McGinnis. I'm curious then, Barbara, had there been any other issues besides that? Was a good call from Linda, just with regard to the seniors you're dealing with and the stimulus checks they're getting, and maybe how they're spending it, or what you recommend they do with that money when they get it, if they're on a fixed income or if they had savings and they didn't need it immediately right then?
Well, one real interesting implication of these stimulus checks, or a category of people that are probably receiving those checks, are SSI recipients and Medicaid recipients. So if you're on TennCare, even if it's the Choices program, you're receiving TennCare, and this is part of what I'm talking about. You get that stimulus check, all of those categories of people have a resource limitation of $2,000 if you're on SSI, if you have Medicaid, or you have Medicaid. So if you get that stimulus check, it's likely going to put you over the $2,000. And so the question we frequently have received is, what does that mean for me? Do I have to spend it immediately? What do I do with it? And the answer is, and again, this is one of those situations where it wasn't real clear from the get-go, but has come out subsequent, that money, that stimulus check deposit, is considered more like an income tax refund, and you have a full year to spend it. Do I recommend that? You may have other needs that you need to go ahead and use that money for, but you don't have to. Okay, it's $1,200. It's not life-changing money. It's nice, but it's not life-changing money. If you need something, go ahead and spend it. But if you don't, you can you have up to a year to spend it without negative consequences for your public benefit.
Excellent information. Let's go next to Donald. Donald, go ahead. What's your question?
I guess I will.
Hi, Donald. Go ahead, Donald.
Where is Jesus at now in this world? Where is he at? Would he walk into Walmart with a mask over his face?
Probably so. Donald, do you wear a mask? I think Donald should wear a mask. Do you wear a mask, Barbara? When you go out?
When I'm out, and sometimes though, I feel like I'm the only one in the store that's got it on.
Yes.
But have I missed a memo from the, that we don't need it anymore? But yeah, I do.
Yeah, one of my, and I know you work with a lot of seniors and you guys have been doing it electronically lately. One of my biggest fears is, I like to think you and I, if gosh forbid we got COVID-19, we would hopefully recover from it. We're relatively healthy, but I fear being a carrier or someone who, has the virus somehow and passing it to someone who's senior citizen that wouldn't survive it because they have a pre-existing condition. So, when you wear a mask, as a lot of people, and I'm sure you recommend it to your clients, you wear a mask, you're not protecting yourself, you're protecting everyone else.
Right, you're absolutely. It's a respectful thing to do. It may not keep you from getting the virus, but it certainly improves your odds of not getting the virus, and it protects others. It's a no-lose situation. Why wouldn't you wear a mask in public right now? So I think it is the right thing to do. Another thing that I want to point out about possibly, believe it or not, if there could be a positive thing that's come out of the COVID-19 pandemic for the United States, is it really has been a spotlight. It has brought a spotlight to long-term care.
Yeah.
The challenges of long-term care, like staffing challenges, financing, as expensive as it is, I think it is underfunded in some situations. I hate to think that just throwing more money at it will make a difference. And it's not a regulatory thing. It's a very regulated industry. So we don't need necessarily more regulations. We may need different regulations. And here's what I'm talking about. Of the all the people that live in long-term care facilities, and that's both nursing homes and assisted living, if you add all of that up, it's about 2.1 million people are in long-term care. That only represents about 0.06% of the American population, so less than 1% of the population. 42% of the people that have died from COVID-19 have lived in long-term care facilities. Disproportionate. Now, these are the sickest of the sick, frailest of the frail, right? Multiple comorbidities. A lot of them have lung disease, heart disease, diabetes, all the things that put us at higher risk. But still, there is something that's not fitting into that puzzle just right that we need to look at and work. It's a systemic problem that we need to look at and fix. So maybe that's a good thing in the grand scheme of things. It's a terrible thing that so many passed away. But if it brings increased attention and it can improve the situation, or help focus what it should be focused on in the quality of life. We're talking about some advanced age people. If I'm talking about myself and I'm, say, 85 or 90 years old, I don't expect necessarily that a physician is going to be able to cure my longstanding heart disease, lung disease, endocrine disease, neurological diseases. And I would not necessarily want increased quantity of days without quality of those days.
Right.
And I think that's where the focus should be. The quality of care, the pain relief, attention to details, the customization of care when at all possible. And so I really hope we get to a focus on quality providers and the quality of care that's being provided. Hopefully that's going to be one of the things that's going to be an outcome from this, is that attention.
Oh, yeah.
Telehealth is also another real positive thing that may be coming out of the COVID-19. Just like we've all been fast forwarded into video conferencing for communication and education purposes, medical care providers have been relying on telehealth with increasing frequency. And that's a good thing, So that's another good thing that I hope happens.
Well, you're absolutely right. We're going to go to the break, but there's going to be that change. And I think also, hopefully, with everything you just said, they also come up with looking at what worked and what didn't with this pandemic. Because anyone who doesn't think there's going to be another pandemic somewhere down the road is naive. It's going to happen again. Something is going to emerge again after we put this behind us. And hopefully next time we deal with it better. We're going to take a break. We'll be back. Our final segment and more of your calls for Barbara McGinnis right after this.